guessing probably renewed this already, but some may not have. And when you sit down and you plan stories, you allocate hours that people have available. So a developer who allocates 100% of their time to writing code will deliver their last piece of code on the last day of the story, giving you no time to test it. So you have to be creative about how to knock down the hours that they are actually coding and filling them up with other things that are useful, but give you time after their coding has been delivered to test it. Sometimes that's allocating time for researching and fixing defects that you assume they're going to have to do once you test it. So make sure you don't let the developers consume 100% of their time doing coding.
And one way we tackle this, and that's a very good point, because what we did was we created another field called dev due date. So within that sprint, they would put an estimated due date on when they will be able to complete their development on it. That way, we were able to see in the beginning of the sprint that, okay, can we test everything in this sprint? Because if such and such is coming to me on Thursday and I have to test everything to get to be released to production by Friday morning, then I probably will not be able to, because I need 8 hours to test this. So that's something we did. I mean, as you said, we can be creative about how we tackle this, but we have to, at any cost, avoid the squeeze, because there is no quality when we test and the squeeze. The Agile software tester. Okay, how a tester is different. We saw how testing was different. So, team role. We only test when we are involved in all phases. Script focus. We only focus on what code is in traditional, as a traditional tester. As the new Agile tester, we actually focus on how code behaves. Script execution, mostly manual. We focus on a lot of automation as a new tester. Regression testing is automated, executed first upon code delivery. This is very important, and this is something again that we had to fight with a couple of organizations where we implemented Agile testing methodologies, that after they did their manual testing, they said, okay, now we have done our manual testing, now let's run the regression to see if anything breaks. No, you run it the minute you get the code, because there is no use of it, again, if the old stuff is broken. So you'll have to go back and redo everything that you just did. So it is important to run regression testing suite upon code delivery. When to test? Testing at the end, continuous testing. Any questions so far? Okay. Again, the team role. Involve testers in story, feature decomposition, creating acceptance criteria. We talked about this. Testers need to provide and receive feedback on script scenarios from business process owners, other team members. This is something most of the Agile books will probably not talk about, but I put it in there because I think it is very important to share some of our tests and some of our scenarios with business to see if we have the same thought process. Or business owner can come and say, hey, users will never do that. They will never go through this kind of scenario. So for future references, you don't need to look at these kind of scenarios. Or they'll say, oh, that's a very good scenario. And then 10 other things may come to his or her mind, and you can use as examples to create more tests. So it is important to share and receive feedback with business or process owners and other team members. Success is measured at team level. I had this thing in my cube saying, do not blame me. So anything that breaks, and especially when you're working as a lead or as a manager, it's always test manager's fault or test lead's fault. It wasn't tested, it wasn't planned, it wasn't strategized, something went wrong and testing did not go well. No, it is not my fault. And I am sharing and communicating and collaborating continuously, receiving feedback, providing feedback, and cannot be my fault. It is always the team fault. Or success is at team level, failure is at team level. We work as a whole team. The whole team concept has to be there. Testing time should be included in the story estimate. We talked about this. Testing drives the acceptance test script scenario creating process. So when we started our first iteration, we wrote acceptance criteria. That seemed fine to me. We moved on. Second, we enhanced it a little bit more. Third, we enhanced it a little bit more. And then by the fourth iteration, acceptance criteria was being written completely as if it would provide a solid base for testing. So acceptance criteria that comes from a business owner may have a very different language and maybe a little bit vague, but as you move in your iteration, and if you're involved in creating the acceptance criteria of the story, you will collaborate with the team, especially the development team, to write better acceptance criteria so that your questions are answered at the beginning of the sprint rather than in the middle or end. Okay, let's see how we're doing on time. We're a little bit over, I would say, so can we go? This slide will be available on the QA conference website, or I will provide my email address if you need a soft copy of this, and I can send it to you. So, you know what I'm going to do is, just in case you guys have to leave, can you please pass this along? Please put your name. I would appreciate if you can put your company name, your email address, and then I can send this to you. We've touched on most of this. Let's go a little bit on the exploratory testing. This is something that I found in the book from Lisa and Janet. And I wondered how I'm going to do exploratory testing, and most of the places are still doing manual testing. The difference between exploratory testing and manual testing, I felt, is that exploratory testing isn't as organized as manual testing. So the way to put some structure in exploratory testing and do it quickly so that we can do more of it is we put it in this form. Explore what area of the application I'm exploring. What am I using? So let's say explore the home page with a username password to discover if I can log in or not, or with a valid username password to discover whether I can log in or not. I'm giving a very simple example, but all the test cases, exploratory test cases, before you give more structure to them and put them in quality center or whatever, I think what Agile says is we need working tests. So the working test is you're always exploring something. If you are manually testing, you're exploring a scenario. So instead of just pushing buttons and say, oh, let me think this scenario, whether it will work or not, instead of just going by that, in a document, put all your scenarios in this format so that it is very easy for you to track defects or log the test cases, or if they need to be automated, you at least have some pieces of what you did and where the thought process came from. In exploratory testing, what we are looking for is obvious vulnerabilities and potential risks. So automation testing, regression testing, your normal manual testing, all that is very structured and you know what you're testing. But here with exploratory testing, you're actually looking at where is the most risk? How do I break it? How do I break the application? Okay, what all variables? Whether you are providing a variable or application is giving you a variable back, you know, and how it changes, when it changes. Knowing that and testing that by exploratory testing. Then touch points, you know, wherever there's an input or output, whether you are providing it or it is coming from a third application. It is important to touch all the touch points with exploratory testing. So how much is enough? Again, this is also from that book. They have provided 3 criteria, but I completely agree that it completely depends on the team. When you think the story is done. Now this does not only apply to exploratory testing, but any testing. When is testing done? When have you done enough of testing and the story is done? It's completely decision on the team. They say, oh, just test the happy path. Right now we're only doing this because this is going to vastly change in the future. Then it is a different thing. But otherwise you can decide and go from there. So you can read this, why exploratory testing is a good fit for Agile. And we do automated acceptance tests, unit tests, and manual exploratory tests. These are the basic three kinds in which the testing is divided in an Agile environment. Okay, so this is what I thought is very important. Because when we do iterations, when we plan our sprints or iterations, whatever you call it, we only say there will be development, there will be testing. Maybe in first sprint, okay, there will be development and testing, but moving on, there will be development, testing, and additional testing, because you will have to test what has been done in the past and think about many scenarios that play in as the application is developed more and more and more. Okay, I do definitely want to touch on TMAP next in Agile. Please look it up. If you Google it, you'll find a lot of information on what TMAP is. TMAP is a testing methodologies. Everything that you talk about, XP, Lean, Agile, Waterfall, all these are software development methodologies. TMAP is specifically a testing methodology. It was created in Netherlands by Sogeti, Capgemini, and it is very well published methodology in Europe. A lot of companies follow it. Some of the companies, like US Airways, are starting to follow it here in Phoenix, from what I know. But it is basically business-driven test management approach. It is adaptive, structured, it provides a complete toolbox, and you can find more information on how it does that. I have one diagram to quickly show how testing fits in every iteration. So if you go back and they say, okay, so again, we are back to our iteration, you just have to do your testing. What all you have to do in testing? This is all that we have to do in every iteration when we are testing. We have to prepare, we have to specify our scenarios, our test cases, our test data, to execute that, to complete our testing, know when enough is enough, we're done. Now, role of testing in Agile, I have put a lot of things, not really to be discussed here, but you can kind of take a look at what are the tasks in Sprint 0. Sprint 0 should always be there, and testers need to be involved so that roles and responsibilities are defined. And then going further for prod release and closure, these are all just testing tasks and has nothing to do with coding, development, or anything. These are just Agile testing tasks that needs to happen in every sprint, and you can take examples from here and implement it. Automated testing, again, I've done the same thing. What are automated testing tasks in Sprint 0? What needs to be done before and what needs to be done after? Test automation in Agile. We develop new builds rapidly, and delivering functionality incrementally means continuous regression is needed. We've touched it multiple times, same thing. Rigorous application testing, critical part of virtually all software development. And what helps with this is automation. Automation is, I would say, the basis of testing in Agile. If we don't automate in Agile, we will not be able to, especially when we come to the end of software development, will not be able to test enough to provide value in time. Best practices, we've touched pretty much on all of these. Test management tools, there's some new tools coming up. There is a cloud tool that I recently came across called Janova. I don't know if any of you have heard about it or not, but it's a good tool to take a look at. Janova. It is helpful because you don't have to buy all those licenses and everything's on cloud, so easy for test management, not for automation or anything, but for test management as far as I understand. going to be, are now going to be agents of change and say, change is welcome and we can help you implement the change rather than saying no change. And then the rest of the points. Lastly, your social, interactive team member. If you be that and we do Agile the way everybody's saying that needs to be done, testers are actually liked and loved more in an Agile environment than they are in a traditional environment because they feel part of the team, we feel part of the team, we are involved in all happiness and sorrows of the team, and we are an interactive team member. Okay, this is my email address. You can find me on LinkedIn. Please do not forget to sign in, and you can get in touch with me later or through my email address or through LinkedIn. And I'm going to give you the slide bulb. I'm going to have it up on on the website. Or if you need a PowerPoint copy of it, then let me know. Email me and I can send it to you. Okay, any last questions, comments?
Thank you.
So I have a couple of end-of-the-day announcements that I told everybody downstairs. For those of you, so everyone's seen the iPad drawing stuff downstairs, right? You have to be present to win, because they're going to hand you an iPad. You get to do that, right? And you don't need a ticket for tomorrow. Name badge is just, good. Just bring that. That's fine. You're part of the group. Also, does anybody here have one that was written down that we didn't print out? Or did everybody get a printed one? Printed? Okay, cool. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So, that's it. Tomorrow, start at 10. Eric Webley is going to be doing a keynote on going from QC-focused organization to QA. So much like, everybody talks about, right? I would rather be in the beginning, early stages in the requirements, preventing defects from even getting built or put into the system, as opposed to just finding them later. And obviously we can't test everything, we can't find it all, but it's easier, it costs a lot less to do in the beginning. That's what Eric's going to be talking about. And then we have a fun-filled day of more, testing, QA, and all sorts of Agile stuff. Okay? Any questions, guys? Are you everybody good? Okay, cool. See you guys tomorrow.
Is that still running?
Yeah.
Didn't
Why,
get
did you
my
catch
best
something?
profile.